Okay, for the camera, I'll say that this runs on a Dell 48666 with local bus video and runs in VGA resolution. And we're using 16 million colors, I guess. So,
What is it?
what is what?
What are you showing us?
I'm demonstrating the Velocity program. Now, this is part of a package that was constructed for the business school, and it started out we were producing a videotape about a virtual corporation that the school was already using. So they were using this virtual corporation as a teaching tool to teach based on a case study of business improvement, process improvement. And the case was on paper, except well, it was on paper, but it was based on real life cases from hose manufacturers, aerospace hose manufacturers. And students had been using it as a particular problem to solve and writing up a final project about it in this class for a number of years. And we added, our OIT's first involvement was to create a videotape of a computer-based version of this, which was a mock-up. Basically, it didn't really exist, but a very simple prototype existed that basically was a presentation tool where we faked it to make it look like we had a video conferencing system set up so that students could communicate with their professors at other campuses, store and forward electronic messaging so you could send messages to different faculty people and get responses, and sort of all kinds of interactions and simulations were modeled on the computer. Now, it was never quite built that way, but the tape was very impressive. It looked really good. So they contracted with OIT. We actually got some outside funding from the business school to do this project. So part of my salary and Pete's salary for a year, roughly, was paid to do this. And the original business school student that had constructed the first version of this, his name was Joe Cipher, was leaving. He wound up taking a job with some firm in the Silicon Valley area. And he had built a version of this that looked somewhat similar, but it was not as complete, and it wasn't as... It had basically started as a prototype and been added to, and then this was his final project for the class, for academic credit. And he sort of bequeathed it to Pete and myself, and we took it and inflated it quite a bit and got some real personalities, hired actors, videotaped them. We acted as, I was lighting technician, we did ran tape deck a lot of the time, and we had people from the drama school and people from an outside talent agency come in, and they had various degrees of acting ability and had various degrees of ability to present the kind of persona that we wanted, which was people in a corporate environment. So I'll show some of these people. This is the experience the student has when they run it. They bring their briefcase.
Welcome to Velocity. Please fill out a visitor's badge.
The first thing they do when they come here is they meet the receptionist. I'm going to go in as a demo user. We actually had them sign in groups, so we'd have a team. They'd sign in as Team 5 and give their student ID to log in. The reason they do this is that for research purposes, to see how students use this, not for grading purposes, everything they do, every personality they go to visit is recorded. So I'm going to sign in. Now, if this was my first visit, the receptionist would have said, since this is your first visit, I advise you to go talk to your liaison first. The liaison is actually Pete Werman, who's the guy I worked on the project with. Up here in the upper right, this is the list of personalities. There's the CEO. He was a professional actor. There's the liaison, Timothy Russell, who's actually Pete's baby son. James Fry, who was a weatherman, who what we hired as an actor because he's a big fan. Let's see. Vice President of Marketing doesn't really exist in the program. Vice President of Operations, which was a drama school professor that we hired. Human Resources is out. Deborah Wells is the foreman. She's the forewoman. She was a graduate student. There's a finance professor named Jean Imhoff, and then there's some empty slots here for faculty members that we haven't yet been able to get to us to allow them into their office and videotape. Then there's the lobby, the plant, the library, which doesn't work yet, although the basic code is there. We don't have any documents for it. And your office. When you come in, you bring your briefcase, which is actually a disc. So
Oops.
this one just says demo briefcase. This stores all the documents that people hand you. And if you're a group, your briefcase belongs to the group, so you have to figure out how to share the documents between the other members of your group. So we'll go meet the liaison. Go into his office.
Hello again. What can I help you with?
So we've already been there. So he says hello again instead of hello. Then you bring up, you have the option to leave the room, to go anywhere else. You can open your briefcase. And this shows you the documents that you have. There's a balance sheet, capacity, cash flow, income statement, etc. So any of these are Excel, PowerPoint, or Microsoft Word documents. These are belong to word processors and that. So you can launch those from in here. So you can go review those at any time. And at the bottom of the screen, there's a little thing that says no limit. We record how much time you spend with each personality and the number of times that you go back. And some of the personalities have a particular time limit associated with them and a particular limit on the number of times you can visit. So for example, in a real corporate environment, you might only get one meeting with the CEO, and it might only be 10 minutes long, and when you go back, you'll be told he's not available to see you, he's in a meeting. So we wanted to kind of make that realistic. So you have to be careful and budget your time and figure out which questions you're going to ask. So the liaison, there's no time limit because he's your friend, he's there to help you. So he's the online help, really. So this is a list of questions for the liaison. What is my assignment here at Velocity, and how can I use this software to help in my assignment? Both have sub-questions. So I'm going to ask the question, how do I interact with the personalities in Velocity? I'll say ask.
To visit a person in Velocity, just click on their picture on the right-hand side of the screen. You only have a certain amount of time to meet with each person. A clock on the bottom of the screen will tell you how much time is left in your meeting. To ask the person a question, click on the Questions button. A list of questions available will appear. Select the one you want and then click Ask. If the person is going to hand you over documents, at the end of their answer to your question, a box will appear with a list of documents they are handing over. Drag these to your briefcase to keep them.
So that's how you interact with people. If we go visit, let's say I want to go visit the foreman. Click on her, go to that office.
Back again, huh? Well, come on in. Let's talk.
You can see now we've got a ticking clock at the bottom of the screen that's going down from 29:50. We didn't tell the students, but we didn't actually enforce the time limits in the first class use of this because we didn't want people to be arbitrarily shut out without getting a chance to see sort of how that would work psychologically with them. So Pete and I actually sat in on a lot of the class sessions that were using this and observed to see how they'd use it and how they'd interact with the computer. And we also got a lot of feedback in little group sessions and meetings afterwards. So there's questions for the foreman. Let's see if we can ask, can you describe the basics of plant operation? Let's see. What improvements do you propose to relieve the bottlenecks in the factory?
Well, equipment. We'd like to add equipment to Sector 1 to increase our throughput. We've looked at a lathe that costs about $300,000, and we think it will increase our throughput. It has no setup time whatsoever, but it does run 50% longer than our current lathe does.
Well, let's say you don't know quite what you should do next. You don't know what questions you should ask because you're unclear on this whole lathe business. So you want to go to your office. So this is an office that Pete actually rendered in a program called Mac Renderman. And these are the Word, Excel, and PowerPoint up on the shelf here that you can launch. There's your briefcase here, and you can take any of these files and drop them on the computer and go see them that way. So if I say I drop the capacity, factory capacity, on the computer, it'll launch Microsoft Excel for me and open up the file. So this is factory capacity, annual factory capacity. And I don't know what these numbers mean because a different person worked on all this. But these have meaning to the students. So I can close that. Go back here and say close my briefcase. I'm going to review questions. These are the personalities that you can ask questions of. That tablet on the desk is your list of questions. It says review questions. And then you can go down through here. Let's say I want to review questions for the CEO. So I'm going to scroll down and take a look at them. Could you discuss the measures used to determine born-again success? And under that is a sub-question that says, why is RONA used as the primary measure of Velocity's overall health? Now, RONA stands for Return on Net Assets. But let's say that I don't remember much from my accounting class that I had a year ago. Instead of making an appointment with a faculty member outside of class and going to them and talking to them about RONA, I have a virtual faculty person here who's volunteered to help. And the way we filmed this is we just went in and said, what do you typically do when you sit down in a one-to-one meeting with a student to help them? He said, well, I usually sit at this desk right here, and I have a yellow legal pad that I use and get a big marker, and when they ask a question that I need to draw an answer for, I write it. So we tried to simulate that. We set the camera in the chair opposite him, and then we gave him his legal pad in the form of some on-screen animations here.
Hi, sure, I've got some time now to answer some questions about Velocity's financial performance. Why don't you sit down and fire away?
The faculty person here, Gene Imhoff, he hadn't seen this, how it actually came out, until we demonstrated this in front of the Dean's Visiting Committee, which consisted of CEOs from about a dozen of the biggest corporations in Michigan and the U.S. So it was kind of a surprise to him, but he was saying to Dennis Severance, I'm going to get you for this. We can ask about RONA, so we say, let's see, a sub-question under how would you measure Velocity's performance would be, how is RONA calculated? So we can ask that.
Return on net assets, or RONA, is calculated by taking the operating income before interest and taxes divided by the net productive assets at the plant level. So you might calculate this and indicate it as follows: operating income over net assets barred, or average net assets at the plant level.
So that you can go through and review this since you have full control over the video. You can, if you missed that part, or if you want to hear it from the beginning again, which is something you don't have when you sit down with someone in a one-to-one. So you can also go look at the plant, and the plant consists so far only of two animations that Pete did. There are possibly more that could be done. Right now we just did one sector, Sector 1, and the overview. So there's questions you can ask the plant. The first one is, how does material flow through the factory? And there's what happens in Sector 1. And there would be more. We're going to put in Sector 2, 3, and 4 too at some point, if we get funded to develop this further. But Sector 1 is the critical one. We'll say, what happens in Sector 1?
The first stage of the manufacturing process is fabrication. Here, the end fittings are created. First, metal blanks are loaded into lathes and machined according to the product's specifications. These machine parts are then joined to a piece of metal tubing by heating them in a braze oven. 8 assemblies can be brazed at one time. Each fitting is then tested and released to the Sector 1 inventory area.
So that's how Sector 1 works. And you're going to find out as you go through it what some of the bottlenecks are, why the production in Sector 1 has such a poor set of yield rates. So when you go visit a person, if they hand you a document, if you ask them a question, they say, "Oh, I've got a document for that." Somewhere a window will come up that lists the documents they're giving you, and you can then drag those to your briefcase or say keep all of them. Then they'll be on your briefcase for review later. So that's basically how Velocity works.
Wow. It's interesting, the actors in on this film are not nearly as clear as the actor on the other one.
The video is not, that's analog video that's coming off a video disc,
Okay.
which is much more television quality. This
And
is
what?
This is digitized video that's stored on the hard disk in here.
Oh.
So our goal is to have full frame, full motion, full quality video where you've got the same frame rate as you see on TV. But as you can see, we don't have that. This was the best we could do at the time this was created. We could do somewhat better now, although still without some very expensive hardware, we could do a lot better.
Mhm.
That system we have now, the Avid Video Editing Deck, uses a technology called MPEG, which would give us better quality. It's called, but we're not doing that yet. So, well, this is one of the guys who has the most character. This was the former weatherman. He's very sarcastic towards the students.
I can't believe you guys are back again.
The person that wrote this was actually an intern. He wrote all the personalities, and we thought he did a really nice job with it. Let's see. We say, could you provide me with more details on Velocity's current information system? You say, ask.
You happen to be in luck. I have a diagram on our information flows right here for your leisure.
He's drawing.
As far as I understand, you have come here to help us in the following areas.
So he's marked that diagram, and then a little window comes up that says information flows, info flow, PowerPoint. So I can then drop that on my briefcase. You saw him pull out a pen and draw on it before he handed it to you, and we faked that. So if you go now, let's see, close. If you go to your office and open up your briefcase, info flow is there. If I drop it on the computer, I have it, and you can see where he took his red pen and drew on it. So
Mhm.
we tried to make it realistic within the bounds of what we could achieve
It
pretty
is.
simply. So, within good taste, yes. That too. When you go back to him and bother him again, he gets increasingly hostile, and some of the groups had a really fun time making him mad to see what he'll do. Any questions or anything? I'm being videotaped, I keep forgetting.
This is something that groups go through together, or a person, how is it most used?
So far, it's been done in small groups, small teams will call themselves by a particular, they'll have team 1 through team 5, and they'll have a briefcase disc that they use. So their experience is sort of collective at the moment. We didn't need to do it that way, but we felt that if we had teams, that one given team member might have coursework that another team member wouldn't have, and they'd be able to bring some more information from across the sub-disciplines in the business school to approaching the problem. The problem that they're given is really, originally they're called in to build an information system, to design an information system for the factory floor. And he just showed on the document there, these are the areas you've been called in to improve. But what you find out as you start to work with the personalities is that, and this is typical, is that what they've called you in to do is only the least of their worries, and the company really has a lot more serious problems than that. And some of them center around the the ways they measure profitability and their focus on the bottom line, as opposed to actual quality of production and fulfilling customers' orders, which are things that would improve their bottom line in the long term as opposed to the short term.
What is the requirement that the students are supposed to get from this? What is this supposed to accomplish in their learning process?
What they do now, this is supposed to be what's called a capstone experience, where they bring together this course, actually, not just this program in it. They bring together the material they've learned in all their core courses and apply it to a real-world problem. And the other way they do this is they actually go out into a company, a real company, and they're hired and brought in as interns and given a real-world problem to solve and have to solve it and write up reports. The quality of that experience varies a lot. Sometimes they go in and they're given a real difficult problem and it's interesting and fascinating. Sometimes they get there and the corporation doesn't. They give them someone who's really down in the hierarchy to meet with, and they give them sort of a made-up problem as their internship. So that quality varies a lot. This can't compare to a high-quality experience like that, or can't compare to that experience if it's a high-quality experience, but it can be better and more challenging if it's actually a low-quality experience that they have. So the idea was to sort of give this to the students maybe for 1 year, and then the next year they go out into a real corporation. So that's this is basically a framework. So all the code in here that manages recording the students' actions, playing video, and handling going from location to location and meeting with individuals could be reused for another topic. For example, there's nothing sort of built into this aside from the video clips themselves that makes this focused on business. It could apply to different disciplines too. So that was our goal.